The 36th Division story is a very brief one in terms of the Somme campaign. And the Somme campaign goes on right the way through to the middle of November. It's made up of many battles, and possibly 250,000 casualties are the result of that campaign on all sides, French, German and British. But the 36th Division heads across no man's land when the artillery ceases firing at 7:30 on 1st of July morning. By the end of 2nd of July, they're basically out of the trenches. They have, on the one hand, had some success. They managed to break through right the way through to the 5th line of German trenches, and very few other units on the Western Front accomplished anything like a breakthrough on that catastrophic day when 20,000 British soldiers perish. However, it's achieved at an incredible cost, because we know that about 2,000 young men died either on the 1st of July during the assault on the Schwaben Redoubt, or else they perished from wounds or went missing and were calculated as such over the following few days. So that is a huge loss in the space of a few hours. And of course, as that news circulates back home, it causes grief, pain and anguish, but also I think a sense of, somewhere in all of that, a sense of pride that the men of the 36th Division had proven themselves loyal to Britain. Now, there were casualties in Ireland all through the war. Of course, Gallipoli the year before had created terrible suffering. There'd been massive death toll and destruction out in Turkey. But I think what really is important for the 1st of July and the 36th Division is this. On that day, 1st of July, Unionists often celebrated. We know of the famous 12th of July celebrations, but the 1st of July was also important, because on the old calendar that used to exist on these islands, 1st of July was the actual date of the Battle of the Boyne, a huge moment in Protestant consciousness on this island. So there seemed to be some kind of mystical connection to many people. And we do know, underneath some of the mythology, that a lot of Ulster Division soldiers went over the top, either shouting out loyalist slogans or wearing their collarettes, their orange collarettes. And you begin again to get a sense of how in the months and weeks, and indeed the years that follow, the story of the charge of the Ulster Division at Thiepval becomes a very important story. Because after all, Easter 1916 has already seen the rising. And in the aftermath of that, Sinn Féin grow in strength. You have the victory in the polls in December 1918. And then we're into that whole period of the War of Independence. Bloodshed in enormous quantities, I'm afraid, on the streets of Belfast and other parts of the north. But we're working our way through to partition and to the creation of Northern Ireland. And I think just in the same ways that the Easter Rising saga becomes a founding story for the new Irish Free State as it emerges out of empire, I think Northern Ireland had a similar relationship, certainly amongst Unionists, to the Battle of the Somme. So that's epitomised, for example, if we look at some of those early ghostly photographs in black and white of the Somme, say in 1922, and it's still a desolate place, not like what we see today when we travel there. And you can see on the horizon of some of the pictures at Thiepval a little tower. Well, it's not little when you get up to it, it's the Ulster Tower, modelled on a tower to be found in Clandeboy and North Down, where the men had trained back home. And that is the first divisional memorial of its kind to go up on the Western Front in 1922. So in that year of partition and establishment of Northern Ireland, the Ulster Tower is staking a claim to holy ground for Unionists. And that would be verified absolutely this year, because if you go out to the Ulster Tower, amongst all those memorials on the Western Front, there are few that attract the same level of visitation. It's become almost a pilgrimage, where many families go out. They've got family connections, politicians go out from Unionist backgrounds, and in a recent attempt, a bid on behalf of Sinn Féin and the Republican movement in the north, we've seen Martin McGuinness go out to the Ulster Tower, lay a wreath and see that as some kind of reconciliation, given that many soldiers from all backgrounds served on the Western Front and elsewhere in that war.